These horror movie endings will absolutely mess with your mind, so let's count down 10 of some of the most impactful horror movie endings that we've seen. Jumping off into the deep end, we're starting with number 10's Audition. That's right, a lonely widower makes a fake casting call to find a new wife, but it turns out she's a murderous psychopath. That's right, it turns out Asami is not the perfect woman. She is absolutely a maniac who dismembers her victims. The ending of this film was absolutely jaw-dropping. It's been burned into my head forever and I will never forget it. Because it's not enough to just dismember her victims. She paralyzes them to ensure that they feel every single limb being removed. Still today, I've never been able to look at Piano Wire the same because I always think about that crazy bitch. So if you're into foreign horror, I cannot recommend this movie enough. I guarantee you the ending will be burned into your brain for years to come. And it will also make you contemplate ever getting in a relationship again. Moving on to number 9, we got Goodnight Mommy. That's right, Elias and Lucas are twin brothers, and after their mom returns home from having a cosmetic surgery, they suspect that she has been replaced by an imposter. This leads them to end up tying their mother up and subjecting her to all types of torture to try to get the truth out of her. Is she an imposter, or is there something more going on here? Well, it turns out there is definitely something more going on here. It turns out Elias killed Lucas in an accident and he's never been able to accept or take responsibility for what he's done. And the mother acting strange and suspicious was nothing more than a misinterpretation of her trying to get him to confront his grief and trauma from the accident. So instead of Elias taking responsibility and facing his trauma, well, he burns her house down with her in it and kills her. And yes, this is another foreign horror film, but it's too damn good to leave off the list. I wouldn't bother with the American version because it's nowhere near as effective. Keeping the ball rolling with number 8, we got 2008's Martyrs, and oh man, do the French know how to make a horror film. Lucy and Anna are childhood friends bonded by trauma. Well, when Lucy escapes her abuse, she ends up finding her abusers and wants some payback. Of course, Anna tags along, but what they discover is much more sinister than anything they could have imagined. There's a cult performing experiments on children trying to get information to find out if there's an afterlife. That's right, human suffering apparently can create a martyr who can glimpse into the afterlife. Who knew? You see, the cult believed that extreme suffering could push somebody into a transcendent state that would allow them to view into the afterlife. And Anna ends up actually being captured and skinned alive, which allows her to reach this state. But when Anna tells the cult leader Mademoiselle the truth, she ends up killing herself. What did she whisper? We'll never know. Next up at number 7, we have The Witch, because what the hell was this ending? A Puritan family in 1600s New England is banished from their settlement and forced to start a new life on the edge of the woods. Well, it doesn't take long for things to start falling apart even further as their baby Samuel disappears, their siblings disappear, their crops fail. It's just a bad time. And of course, as the family crumbles, they start to turn on each other. So what do? Accuse the eldest child, Thomasin, of witchcraft. That's right, she's a witch. Her mom crashes out, she attacks her, Thomasin kills her in self-defense. Man, they just cannot catch a break in this family. So what does she do? Well, she goes and talks to their goat, Black Phillip, and asks him if he can speak. And miraculously, he talks. Turns out he was the devil in disguise the whole time. Turns out if she signs his book, he'll give her all the freedoms and luxuries that she could ever want in life, and all of the butter that she can eat. Turns out when you make a deal with the devil, you get all you can eat butter. Yeah, just go with it. But the biggest WTF moment comes from her walking into the woods after signing the book, and she finds the coven of witches, and she starts levitating in a circle with them and starts smiling. Yeah, this ending is definitely one that you will always remember. Is she doomed? Is she finally free of her oppressive life? It doesn't really answer that. It kind of leaves it open-ended for the viewer to interpret, and I really dug it. Number 6, The Cabin in the Woods. This was not only a really fun movie, but the ending absolutely was a head-scratcher and very unexpected. And this one takes the classic horror setup and flips it so hard on its head it actually goes into what the fuck apocalypse mode. 5 college friends head to a cabin in the woods and they unknowingly trigger a ritual by messing with some creepy objects in the basement. Sounds simple enough, but there's so much more. See, there's a secret underground facility that's actually controlling and monitoring every horror cliche that pops up. And it turns out this facility is part of a global organization where they have to meet certain requirements to appease the ancient gods. That's right, what the fuck. But see, these gods are picky. They don't demand just standard sacrifices. They have to meet certain requirements, which makes it even more difficult to get the sacrifices done accordingly. What happens if the ritual fails? Well, The gods rise and destroy humanity, and that's exactly what we see happening. Talking about an ending I never seen coming in a horror movie. And the movie ends with the two characters, Marty and Dana, deciding not to sacrifice each other, and, well, the gods rise and you see a giant hand come out of the earth signaling the end of the world. We were left with an ending that was absolutely horrifying but very humorous, because the literal end of the world hinged on these two characters, and they're like, nah bruh, humanity sucks, we're good. Which in turn led to the gods hitting the reset button and saying a big F you to all of humanity. This movie broke my brain and I absolutely love it, and I've watched it many times. You should definitely check this out. Coming in at number 5, we got another French horror on the list, and that's High Tension. Don't look at me like that. I love French horror movies. Marie trying to rescue her friend Alex from a creepy truck driver killer? Oh yeah, seems simple enough. Until you find out that Marie had been in love with Alex all along, which drove her into a psychotic break, which generated a split personality, which in turn killed everybody that she came in contact with. Which really turned it back to the viewer to question what the hell we had just watched, because everything we thought was happening, well, it was happening, but it wasn't happening the way it was perceived. Then the big chase into the woods with Alex finally getting the upper hand and stabbing Marie, and Marie ending up in a psychiatric hospital still being obsessed with Alex. I tell you what, some people just can't take no for an answer. And it's even more unsettling because when you see Marie staring into the mirror at the end of the film, you realize that she doesn't even realize that she's killed all these people, and all the things that she's done don't even exist to her. Now, I know that this one's controversial because the twist redefined the entire movie, and there are some scenes that just didn't make sense. But after all, it is a movie, so you either love it or you think it's absolutely ludicrous. Either way, it's a gut punch ending that sticks with you, and I will never not recommend this movie to people. And coming in at number 4, we have The Mist, a movie that literally broke all of our hearts simultaneously at the same time. In the ending, we see David in a car with his son and a group of other survivors, and they've ran out of gas. With monsters approaching, what choice does he have? And David, now completely broken, decides that there's only one way out: death. So what does he do? He kills every survivor in the car as well as his son. But wait! As the mist clears, he realizes that the military is showing up and the monsters are being dispatched, and he has just killed his son and all the survivors in the car. If he would have just waited a couple of seconds later, he'd still be alive. That's right, the world is being saved and David just lost his. It's an absolute gut-wrenching realization that if he would have waited just a little bit longer, he could have been saved. You see, the horror isn't the monsters, it's the gut-wrenching realization that David just killed his son and all the survivors, and it was all pointless. Whew, talking about an ending that lives with you. Number 3, we're talking about Hereditary, with one of the biggest WTFs on the list because that third act went bonkers. We see Annie finally succumbing to the cult's influence as she saws her head off, levitating with a piano wire, and oh yeah, you never forget that scene. Meanwhile, Peter's being forcibly hunted by the cult so he could be possessed by Paimon. Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of naked people. Those cultists being naked, I swear. And that ending shot with Peter being fully possessed, being surrounded by the cultists, really just makes us all realize that their whole bloodline existed just to serve the dark power. Hereditary indeed. Makes you wonder how you would take it, figuring out that your life was never yours to begin with. Gives me the heebie-jeebies. Number 2, we're talking about Saw, because no WTF horror ending list could be complete without this one. The big what the fuck ending ends up with Dr. Gordon shooting Adam, but wait a minute, Adam wasn't really the killer, he was just another victim in Jigsaw's master plan. And in one of the best horror twists to ever do it, we see the man who's been dead on the floor, assumingly the whole time, get up. Jigsaw's been in the room with him the whole time. I mean, the ending redefined the entire movie. It wasn't just some mysterious killer. It was literally a manipulative puppet master that was pulling the strings all along. And when he stands up and that theme starts playing, it's instant goosebumps every time. Man, this is one of the best twists that I've ever seen, still today. And you know, still today, I don't think that I've seen a horror movie with a twist that has really left me that shocked ever since Saw. And number 1 on the list, we got the most infuriating horror ending I've ever seen, and that would be Eden Lake. Jenny's boyfriend Steve's been murdered, she is running and fighting for her life, and she ends up in the house of the parents of the thugs that have been assaulting her and Steve the whole movie. Brett tells the parents that her and Steve killed all of the kids and their dog, and basically the parents side with the kid. Very weird. And the movie ends with Jenny being tortured in the bathroom. That's right, she does not survive. No way, no how. And as infuriating as the ending of this movie is, I think that it mirrors real life because we don't always get a happy ending. I have a lot of respect for this film because they did something that other films don't always have the guts to do. Throw a little bit of realism in there. And that concludes our list of 10 of some of the most WTF moments that we've seen in horror movies. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. Do you have any movies that have WTF moments in them? Let me know.